February 28, 2:41 a.m. The radar picture did not make sense. 5 surface contacts appeared simultaneously inside a corridor normally reserved for commercial fishing traffic. None were broadcasting identification beacons. Coast Guard patrol assets adjusted course. Air support was already overhead. As interception protocols were initiated, 1 vessel reduced speed on command. 2 complied partially. The remaining contacts altered formation and moved closer together. Boarding teams were deployed under standard maritime authority. Cargo holds were sealed. Decks were clean. Navigation logs showed routine coastal movement. Then a 6th contact surfaced on radar. It had not crossed into U.S. waters. It was already there. Investigators would later conclude the initial fleet was not attempting entry. It was holding position, and the operation unfolding off the Florida coast was not an interdiction. It was a containment failure. The Coast Guard first detected the fleet through coastal radar arrays monitoring the southern Florida corridor. Analysts noted 5 vessels traveling in close formation, a configuration inconsistent with standard commercial or fishing traffic. None transmitted AIS, automatic identification system signals, triggering automatic alert protocols. Patrol cutters altered course, maintaining standard interdiction distance while aerial units provided thermal imaging support. Analysts later reconstructed that the vessel's movement patterns suggested intentional synchronization, likely to avoid detection by routine maritime checkpoints. Command decision logs indicate that standard hailing procedures were executed at 2:45 a.m., with 1 vessel responding immediately and another partially complying. 3 vessels ignored commands, instead tightening formation and maneuvering closer together. The behavior suggested prior knowledge of interception protocols or prearranged contingency maneuvers. Investigators later concluded the radar anomaly was more than simple evasion. The formation reflected operational discipline, indicating centralized coordination. Intelligence assessments suggested that the fleet might have been utilizing GPS spoofing techniques to obscure real-time positions from federal monitoring systems. Patrol cutters positioned to encircle the fleet without triggering evasive responses. Meanwhile, airborne drones provided continuous real-time feed. Analysts noted that the fleet maintained an unusually low speed for vessels of that tonnage, likely to minimize wake and radar signature. By 3:10 a.m., Command concluded that the fleet's behavior represented a calculated testing of U.S. maritime surveillance thresholds rather than an immediate attempt at unlawful entry. The interception operation was authorized to maintain containment, with boarding teams on standby pending visual confirmation of cargo or manifest anomalies. The unusual pattern prompted an immediate intelligence alert, with the Coast Guard National Security Division initiating cross-checks with Customs and Border Protection, ICE, and regional law enforcement. Investigators assessed with moderate confidence that the fleet was part of a coordinated maritime smuggling network, employing fleet-level tactics to exploit coverage gaps along the Florida coastline. The initial contact set the operational tone. Observed discipline, formation integrity, and partial compliance indicated that this was not opportunistic smuggling, but an organized maritime operation with strategic intent. Boarding teams deployed in sequence, following strict maritime safety protocols. The first vessel yielded with minimal resistance. Inspections revealed sealed cargo holds containing containers labeled as routine seafood shipments. No evidence of narcotics, contraband, or undocumented passengers was observed. On the second and third vessels, partial compliance necessitated coordinated tactical maneuvers. Deck hatches were unlocked using standard master keys authorized under federal warrant. Investigators observed modifications to cargo compartments, false panels, reinforced flooring, and storage voids that were consistent with smuggling concealment methods identified in prior operations. Crew interviews indicated no knowledge of hidden compartments. Federal analysts later concluded the crew were likely intermediaries, tasked with navigation and basic vessel operation rather than smuggling logistics. Ship logs contained routine entries, but timestamps revealed synchronization gaps with GPS tracking data, suggesting deliberate temporal masking of location history. Digital forensics teams focused on navigation and communication systems. Radio logs showed intermittent encrypted messages, partially transmitted to offshore relay stations. Analysts noted the use of commercial maritime communication networks to obscure direct satellite transmissions. A third vessel inspection revealed early evidence of drop boxes, small watertight compartments intended for temporary cargo staging. Investigators would later link these to offshore staging points identified in prior Coast Guard intelligence reports. The combination of compliant and non-compliant vessels indicated operational segmentation. Some ships functioned as decoys, others as actual cargo carriers. Analysts reconstructed potential fleet movement patterns, emphasizing how coordination reduced the probability of simultaneous interdiction along the U.S. coastline. During ongoing boarding, radar detected a 6th vessel not previously tracked. This vessel had remained stationary, positioned strategically behind the main fleet. Its appearance introduced jurisdictional ambiguity, as it had not crossed into U.S. territorial waters, but was within range of Coast Guard interception authority under contingency maritime protocols. The sixth vessel exhibited no AIS signaling, no deck markings, and maintained radio silence. Thermal scans indicated crew presence with signs of active cargo handling. Investigators would later assess that the vessel acted as a relay node, facilitating transfer between international and domestic smuggling segments. Command authorized tracking and containment. Patrol cutters and aerial units repositioned to maintain a cordon around all 6 contacts. Intelligence teams began reconstructing fleet synchronization, hypothesizing that the sixth vessel provided real-time coordination for offshore staging points and acted as a mothership for smaller submersible or semi-submersible craft. Communication analysis revealed patterns consistent with prearranged contingency signals, brief flashes, radar shadowing, and signal repetition sequences designed to mimic normal commercial vessel traffic. Investigators concluded that the sixth vessel's presence indicated a higher operational sophistication than initially estimated, with layered redundancy built into fleet movements. Investigators reconstructed the fleet's operational network using boarding observations, intercepted communications, and historical intelligence. The smuggling architecture was multi-tiered. Motherships maintained offshore staging areas, while smaller vessels executed short-distance runs toward U.S. territorial waters. Temporary holding positions allowed synchronization across multiple fleets, minimizing risk of detection. Analysts identified recurring fleet formations, standardized cargo concealment methods, and shared GPS spoofing techniques. This indicated centralized operational planning, possibly coordinated through secure offshore channels and encrypted maritime communication networks. Historical Coast Guard records revealed similar fleet patterns dating back 3 years, suggesting an enduring operational methodology designed to exploit surveillance gaps in the Florida Straits and Gulf Stream corridors. Analysts noted that fleet discipline and contingency execution demonstrated maritime operational planning beyond opportunistic smuggling, suggesting transnational coordination. Investigators assessed potential criminal network involvement. Offshore staging points, relay vessels, and logistical support nodes aligned with previously documented routes associated with narcotics and contraband syndicates operating in the Caribbean and Central America. Evidence indicated compartmentalized operational cells to limit exposure if individual vessels were intercepted. The fleet's use of decoys, relay vessels, and temporary holding positions represented adaptive maritime strategy. Analysts concluded that such measures allowed high-value cargo transfer while avoiding standard interdiction efforts. Digital footprints suggested offshore communication hubs, with encrypted satellite relays providing live coordination. The complexity of the network, combined with advanced concealment techniques, highlighted systemic vulnerabilities in U.S. coastal monitoring. Investigators noted that success in containment required precise timing, aerial surveillance integration, and multi-asset coordination. Subsequent inspections revealed additional concealment strategies, modified hull sections, watertight drop boxes, and reinforced cargo voids capable of housing narcotics or sensitive contraband. Thermal imaging confirmed the potential for submerged payloads below deck in areas inaccessible during initial boarding. Forensic analysis of intercepted communication logs suggested prearranged rendezvous points for payload transfer. Investigators would later conclude that the fleet functioned as both a transport and relay system, capable of moving high-value contraband with minimal direct exposure. Recovered digital navigation logs and radio metadata were cross-referenced with offshore intelligence, confirming repeated use of specific coordinates and timing patterns. These findings highlighted operational repeatability and systematic fleet design. Following the operation, the Coast Guard instituted expanded monitoring across southern Florida corridors. Interagency coordination with customs, ICE, and international partners increased, focusing on known offshore relay points and staging areas. Investigators emphasized fleet-level tactics as a persistent maritime threat, not a singular occurrence. Analyses prompted reassessment of interdiction protocols, surveillance resource allocation, and rapid response deployment strategies. Intelligence reports concluded that operational exposure, while contained, highlighted structural vulnerabilities in U.S. maritime monitoring, demonstrating the necessity of integrated aerial, surface, and digital tracking systems to manage coordinated transnational smuggling networks.